He is called the greatest actor of his generation, the man who made cannibalism elegant and madness mesmerizing. For 6 decades, Anthony Hopkins has delivered performances so powerful they haunt audiences years after the credits roll. But behind those piercing eyes lies a darkness Hollywood never wanted you to see. A man who spent 30 years drowning in alcohol before anyone knew his name. Who destroyed his marriage and abandoned his only daughter for fame that came too late to repair the damage. Who became so consumed by perfectionism that directors feared working with him and co-stars avoided him between takes. And when sobriety finally arrived along with an Oscar and global recognition, the guilt of what he had sacrificed to get there became a prison more suffocating than any addiction. How did a Welsh miner's son become the most terrifying presence in cinema history? Why did success at 55 feel like punishment rather than victory? And what did it cost to become a legend when the people who loved you before fame no longer recognized the man you became? Before we begin, if Anthony Hopkins has ever made you feel something you could not explain, leave a like in tribute to an actor who turned his demons into art that will outlive us all. Anthony Hopkins was born on December 31st, 1937, in Port Talbot, Wales. A grim industrial town where steel mills blackened the sky and coal dust settled on everything, including dreams. His father, Richard Hopkins, ran a bakery. His mother, Muriel, worked beside him kneading dough before dawn and collapsing after dark. They were working-class people in a working-class town where ambition was suspicious and dreams were luxuries nobody could afford. Anthony was their only child, small and awkward and desperately alone. He struggled in school where other boys mocked his sensitivity, called him weak because he preferred books to rugby, beat him after class because cruelty was the local language and he refused to learn it. His father watched this happening and felt shame, not at the bullies but at his son. Richard Hopkins had survived war and poverty and wanted a boy who could do the same. Instead, he got Anthony, soft and strange and obsessed with music. The boy spent hours at the piano teaching himself to play by ear. Compositions by Mozart and Beethoven poured from his fingers while his father stood in the doorway wondering where this child had come from. School was torture. Teachers called him a fool. Classmates called him worse. Anthony failed exam after exam and accepted that he was exactly what everyone said he was, stupid and useless and destined for nothing. Then at 15, he saw his first play, a traveling production performed in a local hall. He sat in the darkness watching actors transform into other people, watching words become worlds, watching ordinary humans convince an audience they were kings and killers and gods. Something ignited. For the first time in his life, Anthony Hopkins saw a future that did not involve suffocating in Port Talbot. He joined the YMCA Drama Club, started performing in amateur productions, discovered that when he became someone else, the pain of being himself disappeared. His father was horrified. Baking was respectable, acting was for degenerates and drunks, but Anthony did not care. He had found the only thing that made him feel alive. At 17, he auditioned for the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama and was accepted. His parents did not attend his first performance. At 18, he was admitted to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. RADA was where British actors were forged. Olivier and Lee had walked those halls. Now Anthony Hopkins scrubbed floors to pay tuition and studied acting with a desperation that frightened his classmates. He was brilliant but volatile. Teachers saw talent wrapped in rage. A young man so hungry for validation he would destroy himself to earn it. He graduated in 1963 and joined the Royal National Theatre, where he understudied Laurence Olivier himself. The greatest actor alive took note of the young Welshman and told him he had potential. It was the first time anyone had said Anthony Hopkins might be worth something, but potential does not pay rent. He took small roles in small productions, earned almost nothing, slept in cheap rooms and ate cheaper food. The rejection was constant and brutal. Casting directors saw his intensity and called it too much. Directors saw his talent and called it uncontrollable. He began drinking to quiet the noise in his head. At first it was social, pints after rehearsal with other actors. Then it became necessary, a drink before auditions to calm his nerves, a drink after performances to silence the voice that said he would never be good enough. By his mid-20s, Anthony Hopkins was a functional alcoholic, and functional was enough to keep the secret hidden. In 1966, he married Petronella Barker, a kind woman who saw the goodness buried beneath his demons. They had a daughter together, Abigail Hopkins, born in 1968. For a moment it seemed family might save him. It did not. The drinking worsened. Anthony disappeared for days, came home violent or incoherent or not at all. Petronella begged him to stop. He promised he would. He lied. Work became his escape. In 1968, he was cast in The Lion in Winter opposite Katharine Hepburn and Peter O'Toole. It was his first major film role. Critics noticed him. Hollywood noticed him. And Anthony Hopkins learned that success did not require sobriety. It only required showing up sober enough to deliver your lines. The 1970s brought more roles, more acclaim, more alcohol. He moved between London and Los Angeles chasing work and running from himself. Petronella filed for divorce in 1972. She took Abigail and disappeared from his life. Anthony barely fought it. His daughter was 4 years old when he stopped being her father. He told himself it was for the best, that she was better off without him. The truth was simpler and more selfish. He chose his career over her. He chose drinking over her. He chose himself over her. And decades later, that choice would become the guilt that no amount of success could erase. Throughout the 1970s, Anthony Hopkins was working constantly but going nowhere. He appeared in prestigious projects. A Bridge Too Far, The Elephant Man, International Velvet. Critics praised his performances. Audiences forgot him the moment they left the theater. He was always the supporting player, never the star, always respected, never beloved, and the drinking continued. Co-stars recalled him showing up to set reeking of alcohol. Directors threatened to fire him. He would sober up just long enough to keep his job, then disappear into bottles again the moment filming wrapped. By 1975, his reputation in Hollywood was clear. Talented but unreliable, brilliant but broken. He returned to England and threw himself into theater, played Macbeth and Othello and King Lear on stages where his intensity was celebrated rather than feared. But theater paid nothing compared to film, and Anthony Hopkins was drowning in debt and self-loathing in equal measure. He married again in 1973. Jennifer Linton was a production assistant who believed she could save him. For years she tried, managed his career. His drinking made excuses to producers when he missed meetings, but you cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. And Anthony Hopkins did not want to be saved. He wanted to drink until the pain stopped. The pain never stopped. In December 1975, Anthony Hopkins woke up on a floor. He did not know where he was, did not remember how he got there. His hands were shaking, his body was failing, and for the first time in his life he was afraid, not of dying, of continuing to live this way. He attended his first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting that week, sat in a circle of strangers, and admitted he was powerless. It was the hardest thing he had ever done, harder than any role, harder than any audition, harder than admitting his father had been right about him all along. He stopped drinking on December 29, 1975. He has not had a drink since. Sobriety did not fix everything. It did not repair his marriage to Petronella, did not restore his relationship with Abigail, did not erase 15 years of damage, but it allowed him to work without destroying himself. And work was the only thing he knew how to do. The 1980s brought steady roles but no breakthroughs. He was in his 40s now, too old to be a leading man, too intense to be likable. Hollywood had no idea what to do with him. Then in 1991, everything changed. Jonathan Demme was directing a thriller about an FBI agent hunting a serial killer. The key role was Hannibal Lecter, a cannibalistic psychiatrist who appears in only 16 minutes of screen time. Every major actor in Hollywood wanted the part. Sean Connery passed, Robert Duvall passed. Demme wanted someone who could make evil seductive, someone whose stillness was more terrifying than violence, someone who understood monsters because he had been one. He cast Anthony Hopkins. Anthony prepared for the role with an obsession that bordered on madness. He based Lecter's voice on a combination of Katharine Hepburn and HAL 9000 from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Cold and precise and utterly inhuman. He refused to blink during his close-ups, stared into the camera with eyes that seemed to see through the audience and into their souls. When filming began, the crew was terrified. Jodie Foster later admitted she had nightmares about him. Director Demme watched the dailies and realized they had created something unprecedented. The Silence of the Lambs was released in February 1991. It became a cultural phenomenon, made $272 million worldwide, swept the Academy Awards winning Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Actor. Anthony Hopkins, at 53 years old, finally won the Oscar that had eluded him for 3 decades. He stood on that stage holding the statue and thanked his wife Jennifer. thanked Jonathan Demme, thanked everyone except the daughter he had abandoned 23 years earlier. The guilt of that omission would haunt him forever. Suddenly everyone wanted Anthony Hopkins. He appeared in Dracula, The Remains of the Day. Nixon, Amistad, The Mask of Zorro. He was no longer a supporting player. He was a legend. But success at 55 feels different than success at 25. There is no time to enjoy it, only the constant awareness that it came too late to undo the damage. His relationship with Abigail remained shattered. She had grown up without a father, built a life where he did not exist. When journalists asked about her, Anthony gave cold, distant answers. She has her own life. I have mine. The subtext was clear. He had chosen his career, and now he lived with that choice. Jennifer Linton, who had stood by him through alcoholism and obscurity and the long climb to recognition, divorced him in 2002 after 29 years of marriage. Anthony had already moved on. In 2003, he married Stella Arave, a woman 20 years younger. His third attempt at finding something that felt like love. He threw himself into work with even greater intensity. Played Hannibal Lecter 2 more times. Appeared in the Thor films as Odin. Delivered performances in The Father that were so devastating audiences wept. At 83, he won his second Academy Award for The Father, playing a man losing his mind to dementia. The role was not acting. It was prophecy. Anthony Hopkins understood better than anyone that the mind is a fragile thing. That memory is unreliable, that the people we love disappear not just through death but through our own choices, and that by the time we realize what we have lost, it is too late to get it back. In 2020, Anthony reconciled with Abigail after nearly 20 years of estrangement. She had become a musician and actress, built a career without his help. When they finally spoke, he apologized, told her he had been a terrible father. She forgave him, but forgiveness does not erase decades. It only makes them bearable. Today at 88, Anthony Hopkins lives in Los Angeles. He paints. He plays piano. He posts strange videos on social media that reveal a playful side the public never knew existed. He has been sober for 49 years. He is worth over $160 million. He is considered one of the greatest actors in history, and yet in interviews when asked about regrets, his face changes. The lightness disappears, and you see the truth. That all the Oscars and all the acclaim and all the wealth in the world cannot buy back the years he lost to alcohol. Cannot repair the relationship with a daughter who grew up believing her father did not want her. Cannot undo the pain he caused people who loved him before the world knew his name. Anthony Hopkins succeeded, but success came at a cost he is still paying. He became the greatest actor of his generation by destroying the man he could have been. And now at 88 he is left with a question that has no answer. Was it worth it? The Oscars say yes. The bank account says yes. But the silence from the daughter he barely knows, the failed marriages, the decades spent drunk and desperate, they whisper something different. That greatness and goodness are not the same thing. That talent does not excuse cruelty. And that sometimes the most terrifying performance an actor gives is convincing himself that the sacrifice was necessary. Share your thoughts below. What role of Anthony Hopkins affected you most deeply? Subscribe for more untold stories of legends who paid prices we will never fully understand. And remember that behind every perfect performance is a human being who had to become a monster to play one convincingly.